It all starts with a single question asked to an anonymous caller. What do you think happens when we die? And from there, the conversation goes in completely unexpected directions. Some speak with certainty, others with doubt. Some are still trying to make sense of it all. I'm Zach Ansell, and this is When We Die Talks, a podcast about death, meaning, and how that shapes the way we live. This podcast was born from my own fears around death and the need to talk about it. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I'm glad you're here. Today's episode is brought to you by Amori. How was your first Christmas without your mom? How was your wedding day without your dad? If you know the pain of losing someone you deeply loved, Amori is for you. Amori is a digital time capsule that helps you reflect on mortality, navigate emotions, and create heartfelt messages for your children, so you can feel prepared and let your presence be felt through life's many moments, even when you're no longer here. Let your words become a source of strength and comfort for those you leave behind. Tomorrow isn't promised, but your love can be. Download your mortality companion today at amori.life. That's AMORI.life, and use the code WhenWeDie50 for 50% off. Hey, and welcome back, or welcome here if this is your first time. I'm really excited to share some news with you. The project just got its first international applicant, and I can't tell you how grateful I am for that. So in the near future, you'll start hearing some voices from around the world. As these conversations start to stretch borders, I'm reminded that no matter where we live, what we believe, what we do for a living, or a million other things we identify with, death is something that connects us all. We're also coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the podcast in early October. As that milestone approaches, it would mean a lot if you shared the show with someone who might connect with it. Every share helps the podcast reach new people and keeps this project growing. This week's conversation kicks off with a moment of humor you probably wouldn't expect in a discussion about death. But behind our laughs, the caller and I get into something much deeper. She shares how the peaceful passing of her father completely shifted her outlook on death, from cynicism to a renewed faith that something happens when we die. We also talk about grief as a state of being, the puzzle piece that can never be replaced, and why our egos might finally slip away when it's all said and done. This is a call that moves between philosophical and personal, with a mix of honesty, humor, and wonder. I hope you enjoy.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I feel like I want to be better about answering that question more honestly, and I'm just a little tired today.
Yeah, we're all hanging by a thread.
I mean, that's true too. that's
all hanging by a thread.
That's another aspect of it. That's the
right?
the larger feeling day to day. Just to kind of kick things off, I'm just super curious why you even wanted to do this call. I don't think a ton of people love to talk about death, and I'm just curious why you wanted to.
I know it pops up on my Instagram, and I was like, you know what? Why not? We all go through it.
Yeah, I love that.
We're all petrified of it. And
I don't think that's
belief systems.
That's my problem is I've talked to people and they're not petrified of it, and I am.
Well,
and so I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm petrified.
I'm trying to get to I could be wrong. I think you're the 20th person I've talked to, and I think you're the first person who's in the same boat as me and told me that you are also petrified.
Well, I feel like everything in life, like, I have 2 children. So walking into the hospital knowing I was about to give birth, I was petrified. It's like the unknown. Like, you have no idea what's out there, where you're going. You're just kind of like, you got your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But nobody knows if that's wishful thinking or not.
Totally.
We've all manipulated ourselves at one time or another.
Yeah. I'm so excited to get into this conversation because... yeah, because I'm aligned with you. I'm like, yeah, that is exactly how I feel.
We're going to look back on this one day, no matter like whether our hypotheses are correct or not. I hope one day we look back on these and we're like, oh, isn't that bad? Remember when we did that podcast?
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope that's what happens. Yeah. Well, yeah. So before we kind of get into the full discussion or anything, maybe you can just give a rough idea of where you're calling from. And then your favorite book and why. Those are kind of 2 questions I like to lead it off with.
So, it's funny. I am calling from Staten Island, New York.
Nice.
Currently in the Target parking lot. My favorite book is The Diary of Anne Frank because I just love it. You get to know the characters, the diary. Kitty was like a birthday gift for her, and it became this gift for everybody else. It was like the gift that kept on giving even after she lost her life.
This is the first book that's been recommended twice. Someone else said the exact same
really?
thing. So I was like, oh, awesome. And it obviously is such an amazing book.
And how it starts. And I love that it has the dates on it. So, like, you can actually, like, feel what she's going through. You remember being her age in the schoolyard, and, like, you could put yourself in every single one of those situations in that child, like, in a childlike mind.
Totally. And I guess that means we can kind of get into the thick of things and start with what do you...
Death. We can talk about the death.
Yeah, we get to talk about the death.
I know.
What do you think happens when we die?
So I recently, I witnessed, unfortunately, my father pass away about a year and a half ago. And his passing was very peaceful, and that was very comforting. So I truly do think that we are met by our loved ones. I do believe that there is something that everybody kind of ends up like, they see this light, like there really is like this phenomenon that occurs. And I remember my father was in the hospital, and he told me, he's like, oh, I had a dream that this hallway was just like lit up and it was all white, and there was just like kids laughing everywhere. He was not a whimsical human. He was a very cynical man, and very regimented, and for him to even have that, I was like, wow, there has to be something. There's been too many signs since he passed that there's something. I think that, I don't know if there's like the alternate universe is above. I do not believe in hell.
Okay.
I don't know if there's, I think that no matter what, if everything that, within my religion and the main world's religions, if everything that they're taught about, like us being created in God's image and likeness, and God understanding us at our core, even the people who have done the worst of things in their life, I do believe that if this being or this, this entity, whatever was before us, if there really is something like that, I do believe that he would understand, or she would understand, or it, I don't want to misgender people, but
yeah, don't misgender God.
I cannot misgender God. I literally cannot. There'll be a flood quickly. However, I think that he would understand why somebody did something. He would understand, even if it was like the most heinous thing that you could imagine. And I'm not saying that it's forgivable, like when we're here on this earth, in this plane, in this little existence as we know it. But I do think that if there is ever a time where we are relinquished of our sins, it's when we go to that other realm. And I think it's beautiful, because if God really, or Hashem, whatever, Mother Nature, whatever people believe in, I do believe that there's an aspect of that almightiness knows our core, knows that, okay, this person did it because they had a mental illness. This person did this because they were abused as a child, and then they went back and they harmed their abuser. This person robbed a bank because he had to feed his children. I choose to believe that there's something greater out there that does not judge us ethically like we judge other humans.
Yeah, we do judge pretty hard.
We do. And, we all have our own ethics. It's like, even like watching the news, it's like, pro-life, pro-vaccine, pro-this, pro-that. But, like, everybody has their own level of, like, ethics.
Yeah.
Some people say, okay, termination is completely fine. Then some people are like, oh, but not past this point. But it's like, how do you ethically come up with that? Because everybody has their own ethics.
Yeah. And that is what makes this whole thing as being a human complicated.
It's so complicated. I feel like sometimes you have to put on a mask around you. Like, after my father passed, I remember thinking like, okay, everybody thinks that like I should be over it by now.
Yeah.
So let me like put this mask on. It's like everything is okay. And it just wasn't. And I can say the one thing about death is my father was not left in any pain emotionally. His family was,
Yeah.
I was left with the pain, his brother and sister, his grandkids, his nieces, and my brother. Like, death does not just occur when the person leaves their body. Like, when you lose a puzzle piece, like, everybody has a puzzle piece. and every single person is a piece of their puzzle, and it can never be duplicated. It doesn't matter. You can 3D print it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It cannot be duplicated. And I feel like when somebody dies, there's also an aspect of death that occurs within the living.
Yeah. That's grief to some extent, right?
Yeah. And, grief is, I don't even think it's an emotion. It's just a state of being after you lose someone. And it comes and it goes after a while. But I use this analogy of like, you're driving down the highway, windows down, best song ever on, and then out of nowhere, you hit a tremendous pothole. It just hits out of nowhere sometimes. And then it's like, oh my gosh, my dad died. And it's like you weren't even thinking about it. And then you feel guilty because you no longer are so grief-stricken where you're thinking about it all day. And then you're like, I wish I could be thinking about it all day. Am I a bad daughter? And it's just this whole little like whirlwind of just being a human.
Yeah, totally.
Ride of being alive and human. But I do believe that there is life after this. It's not life like this, obviously, but I do know that there's something watching over all of us. I don't know if we go into like one big ball and we're like a matrix up there. Or, I don't know. But I do know that there are certain things that have occurred in my life where there's just no explaining that my father isn't on the other side. I was playing this song the other day. I love the song Beloved by Mumford and Sons. And I was walking my dogs and I was like, hey, Dad, send me a deer. And I literally was walking my dogs, and right across from me was this beautiful doe just sitting down.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I have a picture of it because it was just like one of those things that like people would not, I didn't need them to believe it.
Yeah.
It was more along the lines like I wanted a picture because it was just sitting there, like even with like my dogs there, like, and my pickle hates squirrels, and she saw this deer. I gave her one look and she knew better and she did not bark.
Wow.
I was very eerily shocked because she'll like foam at the mouth if she sees a squirrel. I'm like, all right, you're embarrassing. But a tremendous deer, she was just like in awe.
She just knew.
And I do hope that, I think it's kind of funny though, like all of these like wars that go on and the animosity that goes on between this religion, that religion, the Crusades, the stuff going on now in the Middle East. I can't wait until we all get up there and we're like, what? Like, we're just all together. And
that would be nice.
I do believe in life after death. And I hope and I pray that it really does occur where, like, you have that, is it DBT? What's that chemical that's released?
Oh, DMT.
DMT, yeah, I'm mixing it up with GHB. But I do hope that is released within your brain so that, like, any fears that you have, they're kind of, like, relinquished and you could just kind of, like, melt away into your sacred journey back to where we came from.
Yeah. I am curious.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I didn't grow up religious, so I think that's part of the reason why I started this was that my belief for my entire life has been that nothing happens. And so that's where a lot of my fear comes from is it's like, if nothing happens, that's pretty scary and intimidating, haunting in ways. And so I think it's shifting maybe. I still don't really know.
Finite. It's
totally.
Very finite.
Yeah. And it's hard because then it's like a balance, right? Because then it gives some beauty to what we have here because it is finite, but then that also creates some terror because it is finite. I mean, pick a day and I probably feel a little bit differently, depending on what I've read. I'm listening to an audiobook right now. It's about meditation, but the person behind it is an atheist. And it's not like directly like he's stating there is no God or, nothing happened. It's not anything like that, but you can it's that very scientific approach to things, which is, I think, where my ideas.
But when we go to the scientific part, energy cannot be created nor destroyed.
Totally. But that doesn't mean consciousness is part of that energy, right? And I think that's where I get wrapped up is like, that's like this side of this conversation about, what is death? What is consciousness? Is that just...
Go ahead. Let's talk about, in my forward thinking thing. And we get into philosophy now. That's the most drastic difference with being on this plane that we know. And what we don't know is, I don't think that when you cross over or whatever happens, because we don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think that, I don't know if you have to go down like that, the whole Egyptian pathway, you know, with like the boat,
Yeah.
like, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I do know that there is a destination, or at least I hope. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I choose to believe that when we get there, all of these feelings of pride and guilt and
Ego, right? Just your
You know,
ego.
ego, your ego, like your sense of like, you know, judgment towards other people. It's like, I just feel like that subsides.
I love that idea. I've come across this a couple times, and I love the idea of that just like slipping away, because it is such a difficult aspect of being a human is our egos. Possible.
Well, ego is also a part of your, it's not
exactly.
just ego. It's a part of your identity.
Totally.
You know? And that's why like strippers, like people who have done like a whole lot of psychedelics, they have, you know, there's something called like ego death.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's an interesting like phenomenon to look at and to like research, but it like really changes the way that like they view themselves.
Yeah.
And I think ego is important because it's not just necessarily ego. It's being a human. It's being a young child and learning how to socialize because you're going to exemplify what somebody else does. And I just feel like consciousness really could be boiled down to your ego as a whole.
That's interesting, because I almost view it the other way.
You wouldn't, as ego being consciousness,
as like the consciousness, or maybe we're saying the same thing. See, now we're getting, it's like I need a chart right now, but like I view like
I think
consciousness is the base level of things, and your ego exists on top of it to an extent. And I think that's sometimes the hard thing about these types of conversations too, is just like, you know, this is the definition that we are talking about of ego for you. And I'm not saying it's necessarily different than mine or whatever, but it's like, that's different than someone else's to some extent. And especially words like consciousness, because some people would argue that consciousness is complex thinking and this and that. And so it's like, we have consciousness, but to that extent, you'd likely say that we have consciousness and nothing else does. And so I think that is one of the tricky things sometimes about having these conversations. It's like, okay, let's just get on the same page in terms of the language that we're using. And then we can have like an actual thoughtful conversation. Because if you can't even agree on kind of the verbiage, then it becomes really difficult, because it's like, then you're arguing about essentially semantics and not actually even getting into what consciousness is. You're just arguing about how you're defining it, but because you're not actually talking about long-winded way of saying it.
You also can't prove it. So I'm a nurse by trade. I'm a bachelor's in science. So consciousness for a nurse is very different than we would want to believe as like, you know, oh, we're conscious, we're making critical thinking decisions, or like that, like the opposite of conscious is comatose. So, I mean, medically speaking.
Yeah.
But from a philosophical standpoint and not a medical standpoint, I also know that you can never say somebody else is not conscious, because you don't know. The brain has not really been, like, there's so much of the brain that has not been studied.
Yeah. You can barely say that you're conscious versus someone else, right? You can't even really determine it for yourself.
We could be in the Truman Show. Like, I have no idea. And I did grow up, you know, I grew up Catholic. I veered away from that because I don't believe in a punishing, you know, whatever anybody wants to call it. Like, I don't believe that, like, they, she, he, it, whatever, would not know us at our core.
Yeah.
You know, I do think, like, we all have individual fingerprints. How phenomenal is that? Life is so conditional, nature versus nurture, and you don't know what made somebody the way that they are, or do the things that they did, or experience the world in the manner that they did.
I was going to say, I just love the phrase, like, we don't know what we don't know. Leaving it as simply as that.
We don't know.
Like, it doesn't have to be more defined than that.
No, and we don't know. And I think, you know, think about when you dream. If we go back to consciousness. somebody would say, oh no, they're unconscious because you're sleeping, right? There's so many things going on in your brain while you're somewhat so-called unconscious. If you think about it, how are our dreams so vivid like that if there is no chemical component going? It's just kind of like, I just theorized that, by the way. I'm sure somebody will tell me that it's not true, but that's okay. There's so much of the brain not really studied yet. And I just, when you just hope that there's something more than this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not out of like a way of like, I just don't want to, think that this is the end of it. Like, no, I am hopeful that I will get to see my loved ones again. I'm hopeful that I'll be around for that. And, my father passing away, there was like some just very strange things that like occurred. I gave him one of my teddy bears 2 days before he passed. And one of my friends had gone to like a medium psychic, some people think it's hogwash, but my friend came to my house. She was like, her face was like white. I don't want to say white as a ghost because we're talking about death, and she was not a ghost. And she like had some stuff written down, and she was like, red teddy bear. And I was like, oh my God. Because the teddy bear that I gave my father that nobody knew I gave to him 2 days before he passed, its name is Red Teddy since I was a kid. It's just like, I don't know if we become trees. I don't know if we become birds. I don't know if we become little shapeshifters, but I do know energy can't be created nor destroyed. It just can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. I think it's scary. And whatever it is, I hope whatever books people fought wars over and whatnot, I hope we all make it up there one day and we laugh.
That'd be nice.
You just get up there and you're like, oh, wow. Or what if there's like, oh my God, what if there's like all the Greek gods up there and you're like, whoa, Hercules?
Oh, man.
Zeus?
We stopped following you guys a long time ago. We're sorry.
I know.
Whoops.
We're so sorry. Or what if it's like Maui, the demigod?
Moana.
I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, so I know all about the songs. But it's also fascinating that every culture in human history believed in something.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat in human nature to explain why we're here, right? I had this conversation with someone else before where it's like really hard to have a quote unquote church of nothing happens. Hey, we meet every Sunday and we're just going to talk about when we die, nothing happens. That's kind of hard to get behind. But yeah, it's like, I think everybody's always needed something to believe in.
100%. And if they just think you don't become anything, those are probably mainly people who are grounded fully in logic and science. But they also, in science, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So you can come back as a tree. You can take root in just some soil. I don't necessarily understand that whole aspect of like physics, but it can't be created nor destroyed.
Yeah. And this is from my basic understanding. I think in the most basic sense, and this is, speaking for people, and I guess it's maybe even me a little bit because I have for so long believed in nothing, is it's like, yeah, if I died and was planted in the most basic sense, I could become a tree, right? It's plant a tree on top of me and, the parts of me that, decompose and stuff,
the nitrogen,
that becomes a tree. But
where's
is
the
that
soul?
Exactly? I think that's the biggest thing is it's like, yeah, in the most basic sense, you could say, yep, that energy, does become the tree. And you could say forever that, that tree is Zach. But am I actually in that tree? And like now I can feel the wind blowing in the leaves and, the sun hitting the leaves and the water in the soil. It's like that's a completely different aspect of things.
I think in the most basic part, like with our elements, our body, we are recycled.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, but, like you said, nobody can really argue with that. Energy is...
They can't.
Yeah, that's going to be replenished one way or another.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think consciousness it's a phenomenon. We don't know how it works. And then people try to say like animals don't have, like they're not sentient, but now they're saying that octopuses are.
Yeah.
They're, you know what I mean? So it's like, I know that there's got to be something. And I hope one day that I see you over there and we're like, oh, remember we did that podcast? And we're probably not even actually speaking. It's just having
It's like telepathic or something.
and
Yeah.
thought. Yeah, just like it's just a knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, deep knowing.
And a deep knowing. And I feel like that would be the difference of consciousness within your body and consciousness outside of your body is you don't have any questions after that. There's just a knowing.
Yeah, this is, in that sense, it's almost like the body is like, it's like a vessel, right? But it's almost a barrier to
100%.
that connection. And maybe that's definitely some of the stuff I think about is very much with all your examples of nature is like we've become so detached from nature. We are animals, and yet we're living in
complete animals.
Concrete buildings and, well, not all concrete buildings, but like, we're living in buildings.
Yeah, we're living in homes. We're domesticated.
Yeah, we're completely detached from even just like feeling the earth.
So I'm neurodivergent. I feel everything around me. I could feel if the TV is on without volume. I can, some people are just, their senses are so heightened, and some people, they just aren't. An aspect of consciousness that it's actually now being studied with how big somebody's amygdala is, or if you have ADHD, they'll look at your frontal lobe and just really try to figure out why certain people feel things so deeply. And if we're not created, I'm not saying we're all unique little snowflakes, but we're even the animals, we're animals, but even the ones on four legs, they're individuals as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody has something, every tree, every branch, every leaf. And I'm just hopeful that we go somewhere. But if we don't, I'll gladly be a tree.
Me too.
Sign me up. Forever.
Yeah.
Sign me. I would love to, because I'm staring at trees right now outside of my house. I love it.
There's something about trees.
I know all the birds.
I would say out of everything else lately, there's just something about trees. I think there's something magical about them.
They're beautiful. I remember one time in my younger years, I won't say what substance I was on, but I was on one, and they were waving. The trees were waving, and everybody was inside having the time of their life with glow sticks and music. And my friends came out to look for me, and I was sitting on my car, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "The trees are our cousins." And there was this deep awareness of how everything is connected. And I just think that there's this invisible barrier, like you said, because of our bodies, that we're not going to know what the loss of consciousness, as we can define it, and the loss of life, we're not going to know that connection until we're no longer in this barrier or vessel.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's so close. It's like an invisible black hole.
Yeah, and I think you're
here.
Right. There's moments where you can break through that threshold a little bit.
I think dreaming is something that I wish that they could really, really study more. Obviously they can't, because you can't really see somebody's dreams, but even down to just people having dreams of stuff from their past life and repetitive dreams. And obviously it can't scientifically be proven, but anecdotally, the person can explain something, and one day they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's literally what I've been dreaming about," or this feeling of deja vu, or just we are so in tune with everything around us. How could we not also be a part of everything around us? No matter what anybody believes, whether they believe in this is it, or they believe in reincarnation, or they believe in, heaven. I just hope that it keeps people motivated to care for others and do the right thing. And I think that's the most important part is, what are you going to do while you're alive?
Yeah, totally. We have to take care of each other.
We sure do. And I thank you for this conversation. It was very philosophical, and I love that.
Me too.
And it's a lovely conversation to have, no matter what you believe today, because everything wavers.
Oh, totally. As much as we get pushed into binaries of black and white thinking, it's so much a spectrum. And for me, day to day, I could listen to a podcast or an audiobook and be like, yeah, nothing happens. And then the next day I could have a really amazing meditation and feel like I'm connected to everything and be like, no, hold on. I think that's the thing that I'm enjoying the most is I don't necessarily feel hard set in my beliefs at this point. And that's nice. I don't have
freeing.
to, I'm
How
not,
freeing
yeah,
is that?
I'm not trying to convince anybody of like, no, you're wrong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, you know what?
Well,
I'm
it's
curious.
caused so many issues in people's personal lives. It's caused issues just in the world always.
Yeah. Well, like you said,
There just has to.
The follow-up of this podcast will be on the other side. And you and I will be chatting about, remember we did that podcast? Look at us now. Look at us, part of the universe or whatever.
We'll be on the boat in Hades trying to make our way through. Like, I didn't prepare for this.
Well,
good.
I'm so glad that we did this, and I'm glad that you're willing to jump on the phone. I honestly thought that we were I had one of the questions written down, and you kind of jumped into it about some of the signs. So I actually thought we were going to start dovetailing more into like the story around your father. And then I love that we just like went off into the philosophical, because that is a huge part of this conversation. And a huge reason why I love this conversation is because it's philosophical.
My father was so cynical about this stuff. He thought we went nowhere. Absolutely. And, I say to people, he restored my faith in an afterlife.
Wow, that's awesome.
He really did. And like I said, I don't know what's there.
Yeah.
He restored my faith.
Yeah.
There's something, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're like Bigfoot, we can't see them, and they come out every now and then and throw a bird at you. Like, I don't know. But he restored my faith. And when he had that dream of the little kids in the hallway, I was like, what? Because he was not that person.
Yeah.
Like, he was so cynical. He was just very matter of fact. And it was just really, it was beautiful.
I love that.
It was beautiful.
And I love, like you said, that it restored, your kind of faith in something. And I think at the end of the day, it's beautiful, the people that have like these really concrete ideas about what they think happens. I also just love the idea of that, hey, you know what? I don't know. And that's okay. I just know that something happens, and I believe in that. Like, I love that you have that.
100%. I do. Something happens. I don't know what it is, but I know in my consciousness, I'm not going to say in my body, because that's, we're leaving that behind. I know in my consciousness that there is something, just like, when danger is coming, like there's an awareness. And I think wherever we go, it's a lot closer than we're going to ever have been able to imagine.
I love that. And I think that's a perfect place to stop. And I think I just love the conversation that we have. And I think that's in general, I just love these conversations because I think I know where they're going to go. And then, oh, wait, hold on. Actually, we're going to go this way. And so it's just so fun to have these conversations with people and just dive into this stuff, because we don't get to really have these kind of deep conversations very often. I think sometimes we even just don't want to have them because, oh man, I'm just tired from my week or whatever it is. And it's like, that's just going to be heavy and hard. And I don't know, like I always leave these, and even sometimes coming in, I'm like today, I'm like, I'm just tired. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I'm worried if am I going to have the energy to like have this conversation. I always leave every single one of these being like, I have so much more energy now. Like, that was so fun. Even if it is a hard conversation, right? Even if it is, someone talking about losing, this person and how devastated they are. And we kind of go into the grief and go into all that stuff. Even a conversation like that, that's hard. We're being pushed apart from each other so many different ways, whether it's on the political spectrum or the religious spectrum, or social media does it in a million different ways.
Yes.
And so we're just getting separated, generational.
Even down, children, like, what kids can afford, what sneakers, and it's done in such micro ways and such macro ways. And it's just, the whole sociological aspect. Like, everybody's got their own little circles, and within those circles are other circles,
and those are safe spaces, quote unquote safe spaces. I don't actually mean they're safe.
Unquote.
Yeah, don't actually mean they're safe spaces.
Then there's their own little circles within those circles. It was very, very lovely speaking to you.
You too.
Getting my children in the house. I have to put away the dinosaur chicken nuggets I just bought. All
Perfect.
parents should buy stock in them. And may the consciousness bless you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I really, really appreciated this. What a great combo.
Me too. Take care.
Be well.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
What I loved about this conversation is the balance. It's philosophical, it's funny, it's personal. It's a call that leaves space for both doubt and belief. And maybe that's the point. Whatever happens when we die, the real question is what we choose to do while we're alive. Thanks for listening to this episode of When We Die Talks. These conversations don't offer answers, but they do open space. Space to reflect, to feel less alone, and maybe to see things a little bit differently than before. If you'd like to explore your own beliefs out loud, you can apply to be an anonymous caller at whenwedietalks.com. If a full call feels like too much, the voicemail is always open. Call 971-328-0864 and share what you believe happens when we die. And if you want to support the podcast, you can join on Patreon or just like, share, and follow. Anything helps. Until next time, have a good life.
Hey, how are you? I think this is a really interesting project you're doing. So, I don't know if I have a clear perspective of what I even think, but I do know this, that I've lived kind of a confused life. Like, it hasn't been on your normal track, or whatever people would consider a normal track, and it still is kind of not. And a lot of times I feel like I'm floating and just looking for ways to create and be part of something. And that can be extremely lonely at times, because when your thought process is in that manner all the time, you end up kind of always searching for that. And to make connections with others or communicate with others can be really difficult, because your mind's on a different plane, not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just on a different plane, and you're looking to connect to things. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just, I had talked about looking to be creative or looking to put things out in the world, but maybe it's more looking to connect to things, to people, to art, and that can be really confusing. So overall, what I think is, or my perspective, lack of maybe, is that I hope, it's more of a hope, that when you die, that there's more of a clear perspective that can get you to those points quicker, that you would find true happiness. I think that the search is always well worth it, and there's happiness within it, but sometimes the end result isn't where you want it. So I think the search for happiness is kind of the journey, but maybe in the end, you can find that true connection to others, connection to art. The search will continue, but maybe there's more of a finish line with it. Fill your heart a little bit more. So, that's all I got. Thank you. Bye.